Hey everybody, welcome to PluggedIn Radio episode number 9. I got to do a better job at following up with those episode numbers, but this is your show, brought to you by Plugin Tut, your home for handcrafted WordPress plugin tutorials. And today, we're going to talk to Nate Wright, a good friend of mine from across the pond, runs a shop called Theme of the Crop, one of my favorites in the WordPress theme industry. Nate, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So today we're going to not only talk about Theme of the Crop, what you're doing over there, but specifically a niche plugin. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. A plugin called Business Profile and how it's used in your themes, for your restaurant sites that you help folks build with your themes, but for any business, small business website that somebody might be building. But first, give folks the 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are and what you do, above and beyond what I've already introduced.
Yeah, I run this shop that does themes and plugins for restaurants. Does a bunch of different sort of free plugins, and then I have commercial themes and add-ons for those plugins as well. Today we're going to be talking about this Business Profile plugin that's really geared towards kind of improving local search engine optimization, and that's mostly valuable for local businesses. Those are, the shops that are around the corner, or the kinds of businesses where the majority of your customers are going to be coming from your area.
So, I mean, obviously, it's a great. We were talking about this pre-show, like we were joking about how people call it a niche plugin because maybe the idea of local business isn't something that many people think of when they're building a site. Is that probably a fair statement?
Yeah, and I think it's generally there's a bias amongst the web development community towards global businesses and digital native businesses and everything. But, in terms of their economic impact, although each individual local business tends to be pretty small, it's actually a pretty big market. And although I built this solution specifically for restaurants, it has a lot of applications for all kinds of local businesses like hairdressers or dentists or contractors or all that kind of thing. So I told you before, it irks me a little bit when people call it a niche plugin, because obviously it does have a specific use case for specific types of businesses, but
Sure.
I think the number of businesses that can benefit from it cumulatively is huge.
And I think so up on the screen again, if you are somebody who just listens to the audio of PluggedIn Radio, it's definitely a benefit to watch the video over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/plugintut, or on plugintut.com. But up on the screen right now, I have the Business Profile article that I posted and video quite some time ago, a couple weeks or maybe over a month ago. And, again, versatile plugin. And I think really where it falls, people might refer to it as a niche plugin because there's not a lot of plugins that specifically target what you're doing with boosting search visibility. And you're actually going to show us how you do that with the plugin in a little bit. But I just feel like there's not a lot of plugins that come to mind off the top of my head. And I think maybe that's why people sort of segment it as a niche plugin. Maybe because it's one of those plugins, like I've hosted many past guests on PluggedIn Radio, Tom McFarland, Jay Tripp, everybody who they're creating these sort of simple, with air quotes in the air, these simple plugins that do one thing really well, and sort of flies in the face of throw everything and the kitchen sink into your plugin. So maybe a lot of folks sort of say, well, Business Profile only does this one thing. Maybe I can find another SEO plugin that encompasses everything. But in fact, your theme that we're actually going to demo a little bit today, you actually recommend installing Yoast SEO on top of Business Profile, right? So they're a great combination together, I guess.
Yeah, and that's sort of a source of confusion that I'm trying to clear up a bit with some of the sales language I'm developing for a new site. Is that local SEO is actually quite different from the kind of SEO that the base Yoast plugin does. And actually, Yoast has a commercial local SEO plugin that does what Business Profile does, plus a little bit more, actually. Mine having the benefit, of course, of being free.
Sure. So, last night I was at I'm part of this accelerator, and I'm a mentor, and sort of just trying to be involved in the program as often as I can. But anyway, I was there and I was talking to just a host of young entrepreneurs, some of them older in age, but young to entrepreneurship, getting started, and people are just throwing things at them left and right, building a website, e-commerce online, SEO. You have to do SEO to be found. You have to be ranked #1 in Google search results. But real quick, what's the difference between that you found anyway, building this plugin, the difference in local SEO versus what I'll call traditional SEO, even though I feel it's all sort of embodied in one, but what's your take on local SEO versus traditional SEO?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're like completely distinct. I would say
Right.
anybody who needs local SEO also needs the regular SEO as well.
Yep.
What I call local SEO is really optimizing local searches, and I would say there are two places that happens. If you search Google for restaurants in Brooklyn, for instance, Google's not just going to give you a list of search results. They're going to give you a map, and they're going to give you a bunch of dots plotted on that map based on results that they find that are nearby Brooklyn. If you are on your phone and you open up your map and you search pizza places near me, Google's going to take into account where you are, and it's going to search for results specific to that. So in many ways, this plugin isn't about beating other people. Like, it's not about ranking super high. It's about making sure that Google knows exactly what type of business you are and where you are, so that when people are searching for that type in that place, your dot comes up.
Right. So there's this thing, and again, there's probably not a lot of developers listening to this show specifically, but there's this thing called sort of metadata, right? Or schema data, perhaps, in this case, that Google looks for to say, hey, your address is 123 Main Street, and your hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, 9 to 5 or whatever. This data is getting passed off to Google sort of behind the scenes, and people are and Google saying, hey, I know what time this restaurant opens up. I know what time they close, and I know where they are on the map. And the bonus here is, like Nate said, it's not like gaming the system, white hat, gray hat, black hat, or outperforming. It's just like required data that when you're searching on your phone or on your desktop or whatever, that data is available to Google. So I'm going to let you take over control of the screen, and perhaps we can show the audience. Well, actually, before you do that, let me switch the scene. Okay, now you can take control. We're going to demonstrate how you've actually incorporated this sort of logic technology advantage, if you will, into your plugin so that folks can hook up to Google the right way.
Yeah. So basically, once you install the business profile plugin, which you can get from the repository, once it's activated, you'll see down in the bottom left, there's a little business profile page, and I'll go ahead and reload it, but it's the same page. And the first piece of data is probably the most complicated. It's what we call a schema type. But this is basically you telling Google, like, what is it that this website does? And there's actually hundreds of potential things that you can list here. I've deliberately focused on local businesses. So I've only added the entries under the local business section. If you're a developer, you can extend this list to be more specific, but this should cover the overwhelming majority of people who need to use this plugin. So since restaurants are what I do, I'm going to go ahead and select a restaurant.
And the obvious benefit here, just again for folks, the 101 stuff, you're telling Google that you are a restaurant. And I know it sounds silly to even sort of emphasize that, but the idea here is, look, if you are a restaurant, then you want to tell them that you are a restaurant, not just a generic business, because it's going to help you get found in those food searches, pizza searches, what have you.
And there's also quite clever, when you make a specific search for something, and Google will give you kind of that info panel on the right, they're starting to chuck more and more information in there. So for instance, with a restaurant, one thing you can do is you can say, in your schema metadata, not just I'm a restaurant, but you can say, this is the link you should follow to make a reservation. And if Google can understand that, it's going to start putting that information directly into that information panel for you. You can do that with menus as well for restaurants. And I'm sure there are other benefits for other businesses, but restaurants is obviously the one I'm most familiar with. So then obviously it's pretty straightforward. You know, we'll say we're plugged in radio, the restaurant.
Some good eats.
Obviously your next lateral move.
Yeah.
And then you'll just put your address. And Google needs to know the actual coordinates rather than just the address. So you can come down here and choose retrieve map coordinates. And since I didn't put a very specific address in, it found a couple of options. So I'm just going to choose that one. And I forgot to see where that was actually. Parksville, New York. Okay, so we'll say Parksville, New York. And so these little coordinates, don't worry too much about them. It's just important that they're set. Now the last part, we didn't prepare this ahead of time, so this actually kind of sucks. I forgot to do this. But
You'll need to grab yourself an API key.
Yeah, Google now it was only about a month or so ago. It's now requiring an API key for every site. So there's no way that I can really there's no magic I can do under the hood to prevent this step. But I've got good documentation on how you go about getting the API key and entering it in here. But for this demo, you won't actually see the Google map.
Sure.
So let's say that this is our phone number. And we don't actually want a contact page in our example. Let's just say that we want, this is probably not a real email address. So don't try and send email to that one. And then the opening hours. Opening hours can get quite complex for different kinds of businesses and stuff. This kind of allows you to build up your opening hours however you want. So if you're open Monday through Friday at a certain time, you can come in and say, yeah, I'm open for lunch through to dinner, all the way down. But then on Saturday, maybe you're open especially long. So you'll say on Saturday, I'm open from noon all the way down to, we do late night events. So we'll say we close at 11 o'clock. So then you've got your 2 opening hours, and you can go ahead and save that. And then if you want to display that information anywhere, you can just come in here, create a new, oh, I should probably just stick to one page. Go ahead and add a new page and say contact us. Actually, did I already add this page? I don't remember. But then you just drop this little short code in anywhere you want and publish it. And then go ahead and have a look at that page. And you'll see you get a really nice presentation of this data.
I did not even know that was available through the plugin, and I've used this thing a million times.
Okay. Clearly, I need better documentation.
I had no idea.
All right, then. Yeah, I definitely need to improve that. It's good to know. And so this looks just, you know, it's just a presentation. But what's really meaningful about this is under the hood, you'll see there's this thing called item scope and item type and all this kind of stuff. You don't worry about what that actually does. Or you don't need to know all the technical details. That's what this plugin handles for you. But that's the specific markup we're giving to Google that says, this is a restaurant address, this is a restaurant phone number.
Sure.
You know, these are the restaurant opening hours, and this is the restaurant Google map, which is not displaying because we don't have the API key.
Sure. You know, and I think that, you know, if you're a restaurant owner or, you know, somebody who's looking at this, running the small business, and you don't know the technicals, Nate's absolutely correct. Like, You don't need to know the technicals. That's what this plugin is for. But it's good to know that it's doing its job the right way, and you can always pass this off as a good small business owner should have as a professional consultant on the side, especially a WordPress consultant or marketing consultant, and say, look, I know this plugin does it the right way. Maybe you can go and take a look under the hood and give everything the thumbs up, or use whatever it might, output for, our marketing strategy or whatever. Pass it on to your developer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward, and the plugin's quite developer friendly. So this is the presentation in one of my themes, but how you actually present and this data can change pretty dramatically with the developer, I mean.
Yeah. You mean in terms of styling it or whatever? Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. It's pretty straightforward on setting that up. Identify your business, identify, of course, your address, your hours of operation. Sort of the one tricky part for anybody who's not technical will be getting that API key from Google. But I can tell you that just maybe 6 months or a year ago, even for folks like you and I, getting an API key from Google is a pain. It was a pain. It's still probably not the best process in the world, but it is leaps and bounds better than what it used to be, at least in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when they forced this on everybody, because I thought this is just, I'm going to get so many support requests. But to compensate, I did put together really straightforward documentation with screenshots. So you just click that link to the documentation and it should be pretty easy to follow along.
Nice. Now, one of the bigger sort of updates, because I know that as a consultant myself, it was a request that came out, as soon as we started using it. Again, any small business, especially one that can benefit from local SEO like this, we're using this plugin on all of our sites that we consult on to do this. But one of the biggest requests in the beginning was, hey, Nate, can we have multiple locations? We have clients with multiple locations, all operating out of the same, URL, and we just want to demonstrate that they have multiple locations. You've now enabled that option with a little enable support for multiple business locations. I'm going to hit activate, and then I'll let you drive the rest of the way. So it's as simple as, again, installing business profile, coming down, checking this bad boy off, hitting save, and then we'll see on the left-hand side the update to all locations. And now under all locations, you're able to add multiple locations. Imagine that.
Yeah. I've worked really, this was a big feature request, but what I didn't want to do is add a lot of overhead for people who had single locations in terms of the difficulty of setting up. So I kind of set up the structure to make it as clean as possible so that you only really have to activate the things you need. But all locations is just, it'll be really recognizable from pretty much any custom post type plugin that you may have used for products or anything like that. So if you just come in here and say PluggedIn Radio downtown, let's say we've got a downtown location. You'll notice all the same stuff. You can put in the schema type and it'll automatically load the one that's the main location. But you can also add something or change it here if you had different kinds. Then you'll do the same thing with any kind of new address. I'm going to choose the Portola, California one now. And yeah, put in the same details. And this is an extra meta box. This is down here because we've also activated my reservations plugin. And so it has some integrations there as well, which we may have time to get into, maybe not. And then you can set up, again, your own opening hours. So I'm just going to set up one set to keep things short. So let's say this location, it's popular for brunch. So we're going to go ahead and open at 9 a.m. And we'll close at 9 p.m. And the other key thing that people should think about is each location is going to have its own URL on your website, and Google really likes each URL on your site to have some unique content. So it's quite useful for you to put some kind of unique content in there. That's why there's this space for description. So you can just say something like, our downtown location has a special brunch menu, whatever, you'll probably want to give it, maybe a couple hundred words if you're really looking at optimizing this page on your site. If not, if you can't figure that out, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're aiming to get this particular URL ranking, then that's a good thing to do.
I have a question for you. Knowing now that you have that card short code, and let's just say somebody were to create a page of, whatever, all locations, or even use the widget that's available with this and put multiple widgets on a page. Does the schema data conflict with each other? I don't know if maybe this is getting way too far down the rabbit hole. How does Google react when it sees multiple locations of a place or of a business on a page?
Yeah, we won't go too much down this rabbit hole. But this was one of the complications why a simple thing like multiple locations isn't always as simple as it seems. But so you might be wondering, why do you still have a business profile and locations? Certainly, like your main business profile is just a location. But the way that Google wants multi-location places to be defined is that there's like a parent organization, and then these are each locations of that parent organization. So the way that we manage that data under the hood is that your business profile is the profile for the whole thing, and each of your locations is a location. So if you have a headquarters that's like a back office, and then a bunch of locations that are service oriented, then you should have the back office be the business profile and each location be one of the service locations. If, however, restaurants, this is really common, you've got an original location and then other locations, but there isn't necessarily like a headquarters. In that case, I would typically recommend people create a location for their main location in addition to their business profile.
Got it.
So yeah, that can get a bit complex, but
But again, look, if that's somebody that is at that scale or that size, chances are they're going to figure this stuff out because it's advantageous to them. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I do think there's a real. If you're able to run multiple locations of your business, you're probably able to hire somebody to help with your marketing.
Yes.
I would recommend that you do so. Yeah.
Stop trying to do it yourself. You have 305 employees, 14 locations.
And probably, I don't know, a lot of the customers that I interact with, they are digital marketing agencies hired by restaurants. And they might not be that familiar with these techniques either.
Right.
But they are professionals who are committed to learning about them. So that's a good sort of thing to work through with your clients to figure out precisely what's going on. I'm just setting up a second one so that when I go and show you what the actual things look like, you can see a couple new things. All right, so 9 p.m. So now I've put in 2 locations into the system. I'm going to go ahead and load up one location. Now, because we're looking at one of my themes, I've built a deliberate specific template for these locations. And again, that would be a nice, beautiful Google map, but it doesn't exist. And that content that you're supposed to have should be right down in this big open area.
Gotcha.
And you've got all your details on the side. But the reason I set up multiple ones is there's also a location archive, which will just list all of your different locations. So you can see I've got both the locations here listed and easy to access.
Very nice.
And you'll also notice, so this pulls from the general business profile. This is a little integration I have with my theme. And once you swap to multiple locations, it'll automatically change this get directions link to an all locations link, which will link back to this archive page automatically.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think that's basically
And
it.
I also
That's-
noticed the phone number automatically gets populated up top. Again,
Yeah, again, that's a theme integration.
theme integration.
So, yeah, one of the big advantages I have of working on sort of themes and plugins together is that I can really make the most out of the integration. There's not a lot of extra fields you need to input, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Speaking of the theme, I noticed that on the pre-show, before we got into everything, you were sort of setting up the homepage, and I did notice a little find us icon or link on the homepage in that hero section that we set up. Take us through that. Show us how you create this section and how they can get directions by clicking on that link.
Yeah, so it's just a little homepage builder I built for this theme. If you're used to sort of the big sort of flexible page builders, it might seem a bit limited, but it's designed really to make it as easy as possible to get going specifically for restaurants. And so, yeah, I've integrated this little thing so that when you click on this, it's not loading it properly. Okay. Oh, no, it's because we have multiple locations. So if we have multiple locations, it'll jump you over to the locations archive. But if you had a single one, it would pop up modal showing you the main business locations.
Gotcha.
So all that happens in the customizer.
We love the customizer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's moving very quickly. They're doing amazing stuff with it already.
They are.
Yeah. So you can see down here in the homepage editor, this is just a little hero block you can add. And then, you can write whatever you want for cool people only. And, again, this is an integration with the plugin. So you can just put your phone number directly right there if you wanted, instead of a contact link, for instance.
Nice. And I'm assuming that on mobile, that's a clickable, the phone number anyway is a clickable item for somebody.
It's not.
Oh, it's not.
So this is a source of regular disagreement. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I deliberately don't make them clickable because some browsers don't handle those clickable links well. And it's not just that they don't handle them very well. They show you like a catastrophic error. Like it loads like this big browser error page when you click on them. I think most of the newer browsers probably handle them all right, but some of the older browsers don't. So I've deliberately not made them clickable telephone links.
Got it.
My other side to that is that many mobile browsers sort of automatically scan and recognize well-formatted phone numbers if they fit the formatting that's typically used in your region. So for that reason, I find it a little bit superfluous.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something people bring up often.
So the browser technology will make that a clickable link on its own, I guess.
Some of the mobile browsers definitely try to do that.
Got it.
Like they will look at the content and they'll say, this looks a lot like a phone number.
Sure.
In the same way that Google, if you have Gmail, for instance, Google will look at the content and they'll say, this looks like a link. I'm going to go ahead and make it linkable.
Right.
Yeah. So, but obviously how many numbers they have, how they're formatted, that changes from region to region. So if you're an American and you're in Prague and you're looking at a phone number, it's probably not going to recognize that. But, America's got a pretty standardized system in particular for how phone numbers are displayed.
Got it. Awesome. And now, so the homepage is built through these components, right? And you can sort of go ahead and continue to add components. Anything specific to the locations, probably without the Google API, is probably a map component, I'm assuming, but it probably won't look that pretty without that, I'm imagining.
There's a really beautiful full screen map component that will look terrible.
Got it.
Let's enjoy that.
Let's add it anyway.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep, that's a beautiful.
Lovely.
Yep.
And then there is now, so you can show all your locations.
Nice.
For instance. So there's that integration as well.
Awesome. It's a beautiful way to build a homepage. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but I will say, obviously, full disclosure, you and I are both sort of in the theme and plugin market, and I think that you and I both leverage the customizer and sort of Now, are these traditional widgets, or are they, or is this sort of built into the theme right here? These components.
Yeah. So these are Yeah, we're getting into some technical stuff here, but they're not basic widgets. So you cannot take any widget and drop it in.
Got it.
For many technical reasons.
Got it. But you and I both leverage the customizer. I think that staying out of the way and not building a UI on top of the WordPress customizer for your own customizer, is the way to go. Stay as close to WordPress as possible. One last thing I want to get into with your products, and again, there is, I have this sort of overarching fundamental way of selecting the right WordPress plugin, and because this is PluggedIn Radio and PluggedIn.com, it's called Fuse, and it's called Fit, Usability, Support, and Ecosystem, and that's how I go about recommending people sort of evaluate their WordPress websites and the plugins that they're throwing into them. And ecosystem, I think, is really important in today's business websites, right? Because, again, one of the sponsors of the show, Restrict Content Pro, Pippin's Plugins, he has a wide range of plugins to use, and they all sort of integrate together, right? So if you're selling digital downloads, it's easy digital downloads. And oh, by the way, you're probably going to want to have an affiliate program, right? When you're selling digital products. So, he has affiliate WP. Oh, and then by the way, eventually, because you're selling digital products, you might end up wanting to sell recurring membership access, and Restrict Content Pro comes into the game, and they all sort of connect well together, and they all speak well together. You've done the same thing with your additional plugins for your themes, and one of them is to book a table. And obviously, a huge thing for restaurants. Notable competitors would be something like, it's just I'm losing the name of the
OpenTable.
OpenTable.
And in the UK, there's Res Diary is a very popular one as well.
So, is this a solution that integrates to that, speaks to that, or is totally agnostic and it runs on your website and it's yours, quote unquote, and it's not a platform that you're serving up to?
No, it's yours. You own it. It runs on your website, which is probably the biggest benefit, because particularly for a lot of smaller restaurants, the fees can be quite significant for them with these services. I mean, I haven't looked too much at OpenTable, but I know like Res Diary is a pretty impressive service. They've got a lot of analytics on the back end and stuff. So there's definitely a lot of value to be had there. But particularly like the smaller restaurants, the sort of 1 or 2 location places, it's rare that they're going to be spending enough time with their analytics to get a lot of value out of that.
There's a restaurant that I go to that we really enjoy going to, and it's like the only one that I ever use OpenTable. I don't know why. It just happens to be. I think I just came through an email once from their marketing, and I just ended up always using OpenTable just for that one restaurant, which is crazy. But anyway, I use it all the time. So every time I book a table with them, it's a fancy-ish sort of restaurant. I mean, it's not fancy, but it's certainly a busy and great food. But it's always hard to get reservations. Anyway, every time I book a table, is OpenTable getting a percentage of my bill? Is that how it works, or is there like a small service fee? Like, do you know how the sort of economics work?
My understanding is that it's not a percentage of your bill. I imagine they'd have a hard time enforcing that. I believe it's like a per booking per month kind of fee rate that they do, and I believe there's also like a base fee or something. So
there's probably a monthly fee that they're on, to use the service, right? Because this is a technological benefit to the restaurant, right? They don't have to figure out the technology; they can just pay these folks every month. But up on the screen for $30. You too can get the power of OpenTable, right? Without sort of the overhead or the monthly recurring costs and that kind of thing.
And actually the base plugin is free, and it's very capable. I mean, my add-ons are really for specific use cases. This is if you really want to tailor your form and add fields, which I actually caution against doing, because the more fields you put in, the more you're going to disincentivize people booking. But there are many cases where it's really valuable. Like maybe you want people to tell you if they want to sit indoors or outdoors, or maybe you're collecting some kind of remarketing data that's actually worth that extra value to you. And then other things for like exporting bookings or integrating with a mailing list. These are all sort of value-added things that I charge for. But the base plugin it's very capable of just sort of dropping in and managing a basic reservation system for you.
And if you're watching the video, again, the biggest benefit is watching the video, youtube.com/plugintut. There's a little animated GIF going on here, and it's demonstrating the form builder, which looks excellent, by the way.
I was proud of that little thing. Yeah.
It looks excellent, by the way. It looks like an amazing plugin. Sadly, we're out of time. It's definitely something that I'd like to get you back on and chat about. But I see this as a huge boon to the restaurant. I see all of your products as a huge boon to the restaurant owner. I guess sort of this isn't the business show. If you're looking for business in the business of WordPress and consulting, you go to mattreport.com and you get all that information over there. But are there any words of advice for the small restaurant owner, small business owner, even the small consultant that might be consulting these small restaurant or business owners? You and I joke sometimes about, the 500. We joked about this at the pre-show. The $500 website. We all sort of scoff at that and say like, oh yeah, we're not going to make any money with the $500 website. But there's like so much that can be done, and specifically with your products. Like if somebody were a consultant, they could charge a $500 consulting fee to come in and on top of, of course, on top of paying for your products. So what, another few $100 if that, for the customer. For $500, they could set up like an amazing solution, right? It's not an off-the-shelf amazing solution, by the way. But I mean, any words of advice or parting knowledge that you want to give to either the small business owner or the consultant who's trying to make it happen on the web, with or without your products?
Yeah, well, I think I'll just go back to sort of what business profile itself is really designed to do is, particularly for the sort of small business owner, a website is often just kind of like an address on the web. And there's a real emphasis or focus, for understandable reasons, on how it looks, whether it sort of captures who they are. There's that sort of tendency to sort of invest a lot of energy into what you can see and not very much energy into the other things. Business profile is a great example of a plugin that actually doesn't do that much visually. Like it gives you some fields and it outputs them on your site. But what it does is it provides a platform for you to make real like marketing improvements to actual places where people are looking for your business. And there are dozens of themes out there that will display your address and they'll display your phone number and all this stuff. But they're not really going that next level to say, well, how can I build a solution that actually will improve your business marketing? And so I think kind of digging deeper and looking less at what something looks like and more at what is the business value of what something is providing is really the best approach to take if you're looking to get your business up and running. I would much rather a restaurant have a terrible website with excellent photos than an excellent website with terrible photos.
Oh, God,
so
yes.
If you only have $1,000 to spend on a website, hire a photographer. Don't hire a web designer.
Nate, this is probably I'm going to say it right now, the best episode of the Plugged In Radio season series, and even rivals what's going on at mattreport.com. Business profile, you can get it. WordPress.
I don't think Matt at Matt Report is going to appreciate that.
I'll see what he says when we're done with this recording. WordPress.org/plugins/business-profile. You can get that. It's right up on the screen here again if you're watching. You can see business profile. 4.9 out of 5 stars. Boy, you are just a 10th away from perfection.
Yeah.
You really need to work on that. You can get it there. And again, you can get the premium products, the support, the knowledge, and the great themes and plugins over at Theme of the Crop from Nate. Nate, where can folks find you to say thanks?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at NateWR. I'm also on Twitter at Theme of the Crop. It's sort of the business thing if you want to get in touch with me there. And then, I'm old fashioned. I have a contact form on my site and I like responding to emails. So get in touch with me. Yeah.
Who wants interaction today, right? Everybody, thanks for listening. It's PluggedIn Radio. It's part of the PluggedInTut.com website. That's your home for handcrafted WordPress plugin tutorials. Again, if you're looking for WordPress tutorials, how to use these things and get them straight from the horse's mouth, which would be the WordPress plugin developers or theme developers, you tune into this show, youtube.com/PluggedInTut. For everything business related, it's mattreport.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.